you fight that imposter syndrome that I know so many of us fight off. And I think like once you get in that comfort zone, you start to realize that, and what I realized, and maybe it's to my own too much confidence, but nothing moves without us. Nothing moves without our opinion. And I feel that same way when I'm in my meetings. At some form or fashion, I'm translating, my grandparents' interaction with history, or even my understanding of something that I experienced in grammar school, or something like some form or shape of the Black experience.
Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Receipts are evidence or proof that something has occurred. Our guests are evidence that Black excellence is alive and well. They will be sharing their receipts on how they've been able to accomplish so much in their life. I'm your host, Tony Jackson. Let's get started. Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Today, we are super excited because we have a great friend of mine, somebody who has an amazing career, an amazing stat sheet that we're going to be reading off here in a second. It's super exciting to talk to this individual today. If you are up on big brands, if you're up on marketing and advertising campaigns, if you like super cool commercials and internet ads and radio spots and social media, this is the interview for you. The gentleman that we're going to be talking to today, he graduated with a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Illinois, Urbana, with a degree in advertising. He's worked with major brands, some of them you may have heard of, little brands like Under Armour, the NFL, GMC, BET Network, Dish Network, the U.S. Army, Gatorade, State Farm, Pinterest, LVMH, the Spring Hill Company. I could keep going on and on. He has so many brands that he's been able to work with. He's a marketing executive, a marketing specialist, and we have him here today on Show Your Receipts. I want to welcome Andrew Harris. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate this intro, man. It's good to hear that. Good to hear the resume from someone else, dog.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, we all about celebrating a person's success and also just providing a picture of what success can be for people who may not look like the traditional picture of success. Let's hop right into that because there's been a lot of conversation about marketing and advertising and representation. And most people would see you and say that you don't fit the mold of the traditional marketing specialist, especially somebody who's worked with major Fortune 500 brands. And so let's jump right into the world of marketing and advertising. What exactly is marketing and advertising, and why is it something that's so important?
Well, for me, man, I would say marketing and advertising it's in its bare nature is trying to get people to change opinions to evoke some type of emotional catharsis. I don't know. So whether or not you want them to go out and go buy something, go vote, or change their opinion on something, this is the vehicle that has been working for thousands of years in different areas. You go back to billboards, which are still very prominent, but have been around for decades. I think the most current thing now is social media and ads that we get a lot of. They get fed to us on our algorithms on a daily basis, but overall, it's just something that is used to, it's a medium that's used to mass communicating and sway the masses. That's what I would say kind of is the most of, in a nutshell, that's how I would put things.
Okay. So tell me what a typical day would look like for a marketing specialist. Let's say I'm a young person or I'm looking to make a career change and I heard you and I hear that resume and I say, man, I like Gatorade. I like LVMH. Oh, I like Under Armour. I like the NFL. I would love to work with these brands. What does the day in the life of a marketing specialist look like?
Honestly, it's going to depend. So for me, I like my title and what I've really adopted and started leading with when I speak about myself is I'm an integrated marketing professional. So with that, I'm able to say that I work across all these different verticals that exist in the marketing space. So if you're talking like analytics, if you're talking ad sales, specialized ad sales from digital to linear to social, or maybe you're switching over to activations, or if you're talking about integrated like media planning and buying, and all of those are different specialties. I know how to do all of that. With that, no day is the same. Depending on if you have this, and the thing is, you'll learn that you're coming to work across different companies or different agencies. There's a process, and you'll learn the process. And that's how to keep things up and keep things going. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to really figure out how to understand like the craft of marketing and to really like how to make the most and extrapolate branding from that and to increase your own branding potential. Because essentially, that's how I look at my approach. Like I'm my own brand, and everything that you go through, and all that measures and it matters up. I mean, it measures and it adds up. So it's essentially the same thing. You're treating the same thing with the work. You really have to dive into it and understand what's going on. So you're talking day to day, you might get dumped on emails, or your email inbox is always constantly busy. Just know that you probably got a bunch of calls. You probably got a bunch of, and not just like not just like phone calls, it's all like video calls. So being on camera a lot of time, a lot of busy work, talking in circles sometimes, but you do eventually get to line up executing what your projects might be. And that's in the phase I'm in right now, really in this account management and creative phase where I'm seeing the ideas that we are discussing actually come to life. But there are other areas where, if you're in sales, you're checking numbers and you're measuring how, what's going on over week or year over year. Or if you're in traffic, you're making sure that these emails and these IDs are going to go live when they're supposed to go live. So you're not doing make goods for your clients all day. And it's just a bunch of different areas that are very nuanced, but it's something that you'll always be on your toes. You always be able to socialize and meet with a bunch of different people from across the world. And that's been a larger result of the past 3 years of remote work really blowing up. But it's a global space. You can talk to people from anywhere right now and get things done.
Wow, you hit on a bunch of things. One of the things I wanted to touch on, you mentioned the analytics side. You used a bunch of terms that I'm not familiar with.
It's a lot of nerd talk. It's a lot of nerd talk, man.
And so that's my question. Is the work that you're doing more tech, or is it more artistic? Is it more creativity, or is it more computer and tech skills, or is it a marriage between the two? What is your thoughts on that?
So I'm definitely more in the creative space. And with that, I'm not like a creative director. I'm not someone who's good at Photoshop, and that's not anything I measure. But I've learned how to be able to use my opinion and use my brain and get that for somehow it translates and it works out. So it's like more or less like a real piece of negotiation. But there is in that sense of, you may know, or you may have this innate feeling, or you may know what's like popular, or what maybe really identifies well with the audience. You do have to add, and you have to know the numbers behind it. Because you could just throw these ideas out to the client, but then how does it make me money? Where's the audience at? Is it going to be return on investment? Because that's really what it's about. It's about what is the dollars. It's about dollars. You have to have a good measure and balance with that. And for myself, I've continued to burrow into this niche to where it's getting paid off of my opinion. And it's pretty invaluable.
Absolutely. You mentioned something also too in regards to the changes that have happened post-COVID. What does this industry, the market and advertising industry, look like before and after COVID? What were the changes that COVID did, whether good or bad?
Man, we could have a whole nother podcast about that, dude. But I will say that, for one, it opened up and it showed that a lot of the work that we're doing and that we've been doing, we can do from home. We don't necessarily have to be in office. There is a way to form camaraderie. We were doing a lot of nothing in the office sometimes. And I'm not going to point any fingers or say any names, but I think that's a general sense from a lot of individuals in my demo. But what really opened up was this ability to, again, you can go global working with, say, if you're consulting, I have friends who have brands that they're talking to that are in Asia, or even yourself. I was able to work at the brand I worked on. I had headquarters out in Paris. It's things that it opened up a lot more opportunity for flexibility, opened up opportunity for individuals to become contractors. And then that way you don't necessarily have to take on the full-time roles. You can make things work a bit more in your favor. But you can have a few contracts, and that's something I'll talk about a bit later, in ways of looking at yourself as an individual, as a business, and in your own brand. But I've seen a lot of people, a lot of my peers really take off and take advantage of these past 3 years.
So you feel like not only you feel like the pandemic has empowered marketing and advertising specialists who are helping build these major brands to actually take charge of their own personal brand and to have more autonomy as far as whom they work with, how they work. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think that it depends on everyone's journey. I could say for myself and the path that I've led, that's really what it's empowered me to do. And it's allowed me to refocus where I like shifting the powers of balance. I think that you really do try to strive. And I think most of us grew up in a household where go to school, get your degree. As soon as you get out of work, as soon as you get out of school, you work, get that job, and you work your way up the ladder. And it may work in certain industries. And I think that there's a level of politics everywhere, but marketing, no, it's not really like that. In a sense, you really learn you take all the skills that you're really employing with larger companies and these agencies, you can employ them for yourself and you can really turn around some larger profits. And I think that you start to realize that when you see the budgets, when you start to get into the budgets and the P&L and you're really the person that's signing off on people's checks and you're in charge of travel and all these other things, you start to realize that hey, I'm a little bit more valuable than maybe I lead myself on to believe.
Okay. And I've been so excited, Drew, to talk to you today, just because I've known you from a personal standpoint and just hearing the corporate journey that you've had and the successes you've had. It's been super exciting because what'd you say?
No, I said, look.
Yeah. So here is this like super cool dude. You know what I mean? You got a cool vibe about you. You know what I mean? And super fun to be around. But simultaneously, you're a professional and you handle your business. And I guess the question I have for you, as an African-American male in an industry that is traditionally older white men, I'm thinking Mad Men, I'm thinking the old school advertising and marketing model. And now with the opportunity to really have a global impact because the world has shrank post-COVID, what perspective do you feel like you bring or other African Americans bring to this area, to this field that typically didn't speak to us and typically wasn't spoken by us? What nuance, what new area and avenue do we bring where now when you're working with the Gatorade or you're working with the LVMH or you're working with some of these key brands, what's the advantage that the perspective that you have that maybe the traditional counterparts of your industry don't have?
Got you. Let me put my Dr. Umar hat on. No, no, man. I think that, advertising without really going into a deep dive of its history and, representations or misrepresentations of African Americans in even to current day. Right now, I think that, they've always talked. Sometimes they haven't talked to us. They talked around us. They talked about us. And I think that right now it's definitely a shift. When I first started in advertising 10 years ago, right? It seems like forever, but no, I was really like this huge focus on general market and multicultural. So very much defined. And then multicultural was kind of like this hodgepodge. And then we started to do more breakouts, and it was like African American, the Hispanic American market budget. So these were all getting different budgets that were focused on general market, which just seen as general population. However, then kind of years went by, and I would say that multicultural is kind of, that is what sways the masses. That monetization being a lot of hip hop culture, Black culture, a lot of Black history, things that we've, had an effect on and, throughout American history. Continues to be, what is the barometer and still what sways and what moves the needle for sales and a sales-based effort for marketing. When you have individuals like myself who come from, I'm from city, from an urban background, you go and get the education, you go into these spaces where necessarily there isn't a space. There isn't like a seat necessarily carved out for you. You realize this, you try not to get intimidated by it. You fight that imposter syndrome that I know so many of us fight off. And I think like once you get in that comfort zone, you start to realize that, and what I realized, and maybe it's to my own too much confidence, but nothing moves without us. Nothing moves without our opinion. And I feel that same way when I'm in at some form or fashion, I'm translating, my grandparents' interaction with history, or even my understanding of something that I experienced in grammar school or something like some form or shape of the Black experience. I am somehow bringing forth, or I'm using as a foundation for my argument. And with that I think that the things that I've been bred in the execution I've been able to check off and touch have always just led to immense success. And I think that's something that we as African Americans and even Black men, because in my space, there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us in this account management in this kind of creative brand or the strategy activation space. Not a lot at all. But with that, I think that that's why I derive a lot of my confidence from. And I've seen things. Yeah, I can talk about different recommendations I make for brands that even years later, as we're coming to this space. So I think there have been a lot of new funding for Major League Soccer and even also WNBA, different calls I've made. And it's like they've actually come true. With that, just really, again, we have a lot of things, we have a lot of opinions and information that we have to offer. We just necessarily have a few different obstacles that we have to fight. But we'll chop that up a bit. But
yeah, we got some more stuff to touch on. You really try to watch and listen to everything that Tristan Walker, the CEO of Bevel, talks about it. He actually has a mentality, a framework. He believes that African American culture drives American culture, and Absolutely. That American culture drives the worldwide culture, meaning America is the most influential when it comes to what we're listening to, how we dress, what we talk, our slang, our language. And the foundation of that is African American culture. It's interesting to talk to somebody who's in that space. And so you said you do feel like you're seeing a shift where that voice is being heard more receptive in some of these boardrooms. Like, are these brands starting to see the economic benefit of speaking, understanding the language of the community and speaking to them in a way that they will receive?
Honestly, some brands are better than others. I think that there were a lot of efforts, and just for example,
and you don't have to name the brands, but I want to mention somebody out.
Oh no. If it applies to you, then you think I'm talking about you, then it's you. But I think that there's a sense that there were, after George Floyd's murder, there were a lot of brands and a lot of conversation about we're going to dedicate this much money to African American communities, etc., or even like this large influx and focus on DEI. And I think over the past few months or so, it's been several large DEI leads from large companies that have been cut. And it seems like a lot of that funding, or a lot of that even just a lot of that fire, or even just a lot of that conversation is died off dead, but it didn't come to fruition. I am starting to see there is a lot of conversation that we're moving away from multicultural marketing. We're going to psychographics. What are psychographics? That's pretty much, it's more about like people's tendencies and tendencies for the biggest part. But there's still always going to somewhere find its way back to African American culture. But with that, we have to just be there to still translate, because it's a filter into different type of just jargon that has to be spoke. And you tend to learn this, and I think just as you just gradually just get more burn and more experience to just like FaceTime with what's going on in the actual craft of the industry.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take this thing back here a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about marketing. We're going to talk a little more about advertising in the industry, but I want to go back to your childhood. I want to go back to little Drew, elementary, middle school, high school. Tell me about your home life. Tell me about your neighborhood. Tell me about all of that and how that has shaped you growing up.
Nah, for sure, man. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Born and raised the South Side, everybody talks about, better or worse, and I love it. My immediate family's lived in Chicago since the 20s. I've been since 1920s, and even beyond that. First, I must say, I stand on the shoulders of giants, because like my parents, my grandparents, all dope, like super dope, and also did a great job of make sure instilling in myself and my cousins just like values and like what family like really is, and showing that love and creating a space for us to flourish. Growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, and a lot of the things that were thrown around and talked about African Americans, Black males, and also growing up in single parent households, you wouldn't think you think we're unicorns, but it's a lot of success stories out of these spaces. But my family in particular, I have ties that from Canada to, even figuring out where, like, what area, trying to triangulate what area that we came in during the slave trade, right? Virginia's being some of the areas, But the Canada is a real special story. On my grandfather's side, he's like one of 9 kids, and my great grandparents who are Canadian came over. Dude, it's crazy, but again, stand on the shoulders of giants. My mother's parents raised 4 kids. This is the home that I grew up in on the South Side. And they also, my grandmother was a nurse. My grandfather, he sold insurance. He was like a man, like super popular dude. But then also they ran their own clothing store, Fastest by More. So it was like the spot that was on 71st and like King Drive, okay? Maybe it's Park Avenue at the time, I don't know. They were just known for being like super sharp. And at that clothing store, they outfitted like everybody, like I think all those Chicago celebrities at the time. So like, I know Don Cornelius. My grandmother used to tell me a story. Don Cornelius, his wife. Guy used to come up there and get outfitted, right? So at the time of the story, I'm not thinking nothing about it. I don't even know who these people are. And I'm like, I'm looking at the outfits on Soul Train.
Yeah.
It'll make more sense down the line for me. But you got that, man. And my father's side, my grandfather is an MP&I, rest in peace. My grandmother, she worked for the government for forever, and she worked for the government and God. Like she'll be 90 in 3 years. Like she's dude. So dope family history. My parents are dope people too. I was raised Chicago, raised in the South Side. My parents were the youngest of all their siblings. I was afforded to go to private school my entire life. I'll get out of private. I don't care because that's the matter. They decided that, hey, they want to put their dollar towards my education. First things first, I went to St. Columbus School on the South Side, and I went there from preschool through 8th grade. So it's crazy to stay at the one school like your entire life. I was there for that. I was there for my entire elementary school, even in through like high school, because they had the gym, and in the gym we had the largest basketball tournament in the entire city of Chicago. So everybody used to come there. If you was a hooper, you used to come to the hoop, and that happened to be our home base. So since that was our home base, we used to practice there a lot. Me and some of my friends, even to this day, even just like other hoopers from around the city. But we talking like real hoopers just stuff there, man. Just like we used to really get it in. But it was there in school, friends that I'm still friends with to this day. The lifelong friends, which is I've heard it's rare, but to me, I'm like, these are definitely people I consider family. But school, I was good at books. I honestly I can't stress it. Like I really paid attention and focused on making sure my education was right. And I think a lot of it was because of my mom. My mom was very focused on you're going to be marketable. She had high school I was going to go through her mind. Hey, college I was going to go through her. She told me this. I completely did not do anything. It was like the opposite. But nonetheless, having an active parent being there the entire time was like, it was dope. I think like kindergarten, deadass, and and also it's gonna be some name drops. It's gonna be like some things that happen. It might sound like cat. It's all real. So kindergarten, I was trying to push me to skip that. Mom didn't want that. Didn't want me to be socially a weirdo. Ended up graduating at the top of my class in 8th grade. Even throughout that time, we were playing basketball. So played basketball from I want to say kindergarten through 8th grade. Dude, we played there we had practices 2 days a week. Then if there was summer league, we were up there hooping. So it was literally something that was nonstop all the time. So I always had those activities. And this place is also a few blocks from my home. So it wasn't far. My cousin went there. My older cousin went there. My mom and all my aunts and uncles on on that side went there. Wow. So it's crazy because then you go there and I got so many teachers who told my mom, old as whatever.
Yeah.
Let me be respectful. But it is crazy because it's just that continuous session, but it was a real family atmosphere. So it felt like family even at school. And then there you talk about, again, active parent. My mom keeping me involved in student government. Something I would have never done. You're going to go do this. So I remember campaigning outside of my school for votes and passing out ice cream.
You was marketing at a young age.
I'm telling you, you're learning how to. You guys sometimes you gotta buy votes, right? But it was experiences like that really helped to, I think, really mold me to be in the position where I'm in right now. And yeah, dude, that school really set up a huge base for me to really understand how to work and deal with different personalities and dealing with different people, because we had just some of everybody coming in and out of that gym on an active basis, and everyone knew everybody. Even While I was there, I grew up Black Catholic in my family. Sundays, I'm altar serving. So it was a real different private school experience than probably most people would assume. And then around like 7th to 8th grade, I started playing football too. Sports was like a huge foundation for me, a huge outlet for me, allowed me to to let off a lot of stress. But I also found out that I was good. Found out it was something that I could do, something I enjoyed doing, and I believe, help me to develop a voice and to be able to learn how to be a leader. And that's something I think is very important that I picked up on because it transferred in the classroom, it transferred out the classroom, but it wasn't just something that it isn't where I rested my laurels.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, because you touched on a lot of key points. It seems as though your mom was very influential in your development growing up and also the environment that she placed you in. Tell me a little bit about the private school that you went to. Do you feel like, how important of a role do you feel like that played in your development? If you were just going to maybe one of the public schools around a neighborhood, do you feel like you would be where you are today? And also, if you didn't have a mother it's almost like she had a plan for your life. Like she had a track, even though you didn't go down that track, like you said all the time, she had a plan. So I guess what I'm asking is, what was the impact of that school that you were in? And what was the impact of the fact that your mom had a positive viewpoint and a game plan for where she wanted you to be?
I think so. Starting with the first one, so I think the school, the impact of that was like a mix because again, like not only did it provide like we had an outlet and we had the biggest gym that could host all these kids, and that was something it was right out of school. We could just walk right through the parking lot and go there for practice. So I was actively in there. So having that as something that you could do after school every day completely got me out. It completely kept me out of something, and I think that's very important because you know how options of things to do. Bored, right? Kids do dumb things when they're bored, and I can't overstate the fact of just like having an active parent and just being there and someone who's just really pushing you. And I think like having a positive influence it's very important. And yeah, my mom, love my mom to death. She's crazy. She's so crazy because I think that even to the point of, I have this plan, and I would even ask her, I was like, oh, I would love to ask her how far away have I deviated from her plan. And I'm sure deviate is not the right word, but she definitely had a huge influence on just my overall just confidence. And I think just the ability to transcend and to know that she pushed forward to a lot of things for me. She is been a huge support system for me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You're talking about the private school. Did it end in the 8th grade? Did you go to that same school through high school, or what happened with you with high school?
No, so after I graduated St. Columbus, I ended up going to DeWassell. So DeWassell it's another private school, all boys school in the Catholic League over on the low end. So actually right across the street from police headquarters, not too far from, I guess we gotta call it Guaranteed Rate Field, but I grew up in Comiskey Park, but where the White Sox play baseball, where there's a baseball team out over there.
Yeah. Okay. So what was high school like?
High school, man. High school was cool, bro. High school was interesting, man. So all boys school at first it was different. It was my first time going to school with non-black people. I think we always hit the stories in reverse, right? First time saying black people. No, it was the first time.
So wait a minute. The first private school you went to was all black.
All black. So it's just So in part of the South Side, like there are these Catholic schools like that, and it's just where black people live at, and they all live in this area, and they all go to these schools. So this is when we were growing up. I think some of these schools are shut down based off funding with the archdiocese, but going to at the time there were just a lot of schools were good. I think that you had parents or family like myself who they went to school there, so they're sending their kids there. The education was a huge focus, and I think was what really separated the Catholic schools at the time from CPS. I can't speak to what's going on now, but which I think I answered your question, but
yeah. So then you go from there, and now you in another Catholic school, but now you surrounded by people, or the diversity mixture is different. Tell me about that change, and how did you adjust to that?
It was different, man. I would say that going to school with all boys and all guys, like people that you know your age, it's very humbling because we're all going through. We're 13, 14, probably just in puberty, just all figuring out what's going on. Going from some of us who or playing sports, you come from schools where we were the man on the field or we were the man on the court. And now you're coming to the place. It's very humbling sometimes in an Oklahoma drill doing 2-a-day in practice. So it changed a lot. So I think that when I first got to school, I'm not even gonna lie, man. I got into a lot of trouble my freshman year. My freshman year, I got into a lot of trouble. I think I was just a hothead overall, just not really wanting to rebel and fighting. Got into a few fights of a number of which I know that the dean of students did not find out about. But that was something that really could have derailed me. Yeah, honestly, it was something that was one of the fights was against another one of my classmates who was of a different racial background. In terms of how that started, it started off very rocky because that was like the first 2 weeks. That was like the first 2 or 3 weeks, man. So it didn't start off on the best note, but I think that I didn't really go into high school I didn't really go into high school with too many prejudices or going into it with a lot of or misconceptions about people. For some of that being like my family's pretty diverse. I think I talked about like my mom's side being from Canada. Then I got some white family members like I can actually connect like this is my cousin. But also that's not technically how I was raised. Again, I think you put a lot of testosterone and you put a lot of young men who are going through their own set of issues and growing pains in one spot. There's some things that's bound to kick off and happen. But with that, it allowed me to. I had some good people on the inside. I had some good leadership and good mentors on the inside, good teachers, coaches. Shout out to Mr. Blakely, VP of Community Development. Definitely looked out for me, kept me from losing my top in there. But ultimately, I think that showing that there was some vulnerabilities there, people were able to guide and try to really reroute a lot of what was just a angry 14-year-old. I was an angry teenager. I was such an angry kid, and it's so 180 of what I am right now. But I had to, you had to want better. I definitely had to want better, and I had to surround myself with some better people too. I think that's something that you learn in high school. You learn that you can make some hasty decisions, or you can do it the right way. And I think that's one of the places I learned in high school pretty quickly. And also learned a bit about politics and the game around that. Dude, so was amazing, man. And even to speak about like the politics, I was in high school. And this is like top level, like secret world. But no, so when the White Sox won the World Series, in our school again, we were right next to headquarters. Another benefit at the time was the mayor was an alumnus of our school. There were many days that we got out. many days that we got out of school because the White Sox have a home game, man. We have to shut down 35th Street. I remember, going into class on 7:20, and they're like, "Oh, class is out. School is out at 10 o'clock. We outside, boys. Let's go."
Yeah.
So you start to realize that does not happen for everybody. I got my friends at Ignatius and all these other places. They're like, "Yeah, we're still in class."
Yeah.
We're still in class, but it was an introduction to politics, really just how one hand washes the other. Chicago politics for sure.
You mentioned this plan that your mom had for you. Was going to the University of Illinois Urbana part of her plan, or was that one of your deviations?
Nah, man, the deviation went in high school. She wanted me to go to Mount Carmel for high school, which it's all good. Didn't go there, didn't want to. And then she wanted me to go to Morehouse. I think she told me Morehouse before.
Hey.
The U of I was just, I think it was cheaper. It was cheaper and it was in-state, which it matters a lot. My cousin I think one of my cousins that just graduated from there not too long ago. Like, U of I was popping when I was in high school. 05, we Final Four, and 06, it's a football team.
And so it's funny you mentioned that because I went to the University of Iowa, and I remember it was my freshman year. Or something. And I was on a football team, and I remember I wasn't playing. I was a freshman. I wasn't playing. And we played at University of Illinois. And I remember looking at the stands like, man, this looked like a fun school. Like I seen so many in Iowa. There was no black people hardly in Iowa. University.
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm like,
I've been on your Green Street before. It doesn't measure tomorrow. It doesn't measure.
Yeah, yeah, the energy. Just sitting on the sideline and looking in the stands. I'm like, man, maybe I should have. No, but yeah, it was dope. So tell me about, you leave Chicago. You're now going down to Champaign-Urbana. What's it like? What's the change like from a city kid, born and raised a city kid? Now here you are at University of Illinois. I'm sure more culture shock. I'm sure more things that are different and new for you to be able to adjust to. Walk me through what that was like.
Got you, man. So honestly, the adjustment was not that bad. I think that my school experience, like, purely prepared me to manage that. And I say that because I also saw what some of my peers went through, and it wasn't the same. But when I graduated from high school with honors, so that was also, again, like something we talk about, the education focus. I think I was like number 10 out of 200. Varsity lettered basketball, football, all the time I was there too. But while, again, with that, continue to stay social. So it was like things that, and it then became like a gradual kind of turnover. So when it came to college and getting down there, or when I got down to Champaign, cheat code, I had some friends that were down there already from school, and then who were adjusted. We went down there and knowing a lot of people. I know a lot of people, and I would say that the base for me knowing a lot of people was my time in grammar school at that gym. But then also in high school, I stayed in the gym because the gym provided in order to run all the games in the tournament, you needed alumni to grab tickets, to run the clock, to do the scorebook, do all that. So me and all my boys, like all us, like who played at the gym, like who played in school there. So we're doing that. Where it's keeping us, is giving us something new, but also it's giving us a platform. So like we up in there hooping, and we know all the hoopers who are coming through. Everybody know us from back in the day, and then also as people start to ascend, and we start to get stars. So got a good friend and family who even ascended, went to league and got a ring. But in terms of when it came down to being down in Champaign, it was not that difficult for me to socialize. It wasn't that difficult for me to matriculate or to even absorb the class regimen and the expectations. So much that my first semester, I think my GPA was like a 2.75, like a 2.75. And my mom had one conversation. She said, "I know you better than that. I know you down there. Pull up, shit. Figure it out."
Mama know.
Look, so much that I think I put my GPA so high the next semester, it was like, I think I pulled like a 3.5 or something. So once I figured out, I know how to swing the pendulum real quick, everything else is it. So this is my freshman year. So I think I piled on, I was one of the people who piled on hours early, so 18 hours like first 2 years, and then by senior year I'm doing like underwater basket weaving. So it was
you got it in early, so you could.
Yeah. So I had more time to kick it. Than both at the end of the day. But Champaign was awesome, man. Again, learning how to stay active, staying social down there. So I was a part of my my department of advertising advisory board. Players down there, Cap Alpha Psi. I was a part of 100 Strong. It was like a big black organization It's a big organization tasked with black retention and programming for students down at University of Illinois. And they actually, when we were down there, went to the inauguration. We drove to Obama's first inauguration. All of us on a coach bus down there. It's like one of the coldest days of memory. But it was, again, like finding clubs, organizations, stay active, contribute to, because it was important. I found that was important. It was ways to not only engage with my peers, but to also form and how to learn how to use your opinion to form and create sway.
Absolutely. First of all, shout out to all my Greek people out there. Shout out to the Noops out there. I didn't know that you played. Can you share with me, because I went to University of Iowa, and the Greek life was almost non-existent at the University of Iowa. Can you share with me what pledging and being a part of a fraternity, what benefits did that have for you academically, how that helped you from a social aspect during college?
Academically, it didn't help me at all. But I was able to. I held a high GPA. Definitely, I was supportive of the chapter GPA and also my ship brothers as well. For me, it was I really knew that going into school, I needed a bit more direction. I knew I needed some more polishing, and some of that being in the form of just trying to find more black men who were from my background, who were doing things that I found impactful, but also I found interesting, and found a noob. And it was when we crossed, it was no one down there but us, and won with 15 parts, and had a amazing run down there. Learned a lot about being selfless. Learned a lot from just learned a lot from the organization. So it did add to one, I would say, leadership, and again being able to work with different personalities and run a business. But that was something that a huge takeaway from that. But ultimately, and that's not even talk about the brotherhood that I got for the rest of my life. But definitely was an aid and a positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go into a little more academics. Your major. So obviously you end up graduating with a degree in advertising. What caused you to want to go down that path as opposed to something else? I know University of Illinois is known for engineering. I know it's a lot of different paths that you could take. Why advertising?
Man, so what's crazy is advertising is also U of I is also one of the top 3 advertising programs. A lot of people don't
know. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. But what pushed me to go to advertising was it was in high school, back to high school. So in order to graduate with honors, you have to do a dissertation, and this how nerdy we were. So all of us in our class at one point we decided we weren't going to do the dissertation. We said they can't not let us graduate with honors. We're not trying to do. It's like a 20-page paper, 20-page research paper. But again, we're lazy. We don't want to do these things. And then, of course, somebody turns in a paper like a week before all the papers are set to be due. So then we all have to do a paper. So my paper was focused. I think the intention I had for college at one point was to go and learn about psychology. Then I realized psychologists don't make no money. So I can't do that because I like nice things. So with that, I focused a bit on advertising. I started to like, all right, what is this? Not really understanding it. I never seen Boomerang. I just had no idea about it. Just like,
Shout out to Eddie Murphy, Boomerang.
Shout out to Eddie Murphy, man. So I ended up doing this research paper. My research paper was like advertising and the effects of minds on children. And most of it was about how advertisers still advertise to kids and it's illegal. Like, you're not supposed to generally do this, but it still happens. But really, that set me up on this path to where I started thinking a bit more critically. How do you turn wants to needs? And I think that's a lot of things that I think that is a hyper focus on what you want to use marketing for in a very focused sense. But it really pushed me down this path to where I'm learning about the history of advertising. I'm learning about what the difference is between account management and creative. Mind you, this isn't anything I learned about in high school or grammar school. I had no idea. I had no advertisers in my immediate family or even media networks. This was like fully diving into something that chase your passion, as your parents say. And it turned out to be perfect because it worked out for one, what my mother's plan was already to be, or this idea of what she wanted me to be, which was always marketable. She always stressed that I want you to be marketable. So it just fit where it fit again, where I talked about a bit about how you are the brand. And I already understood brand and talk and all this. So it all merged very well together. And school for me was the classes, everything was pretty simple. Everything was pretty straightforward, but also allowed me to focus on, I think I was one of the students that actually landing advertising internships and focusing on internships, like getting good ones was difficult. Yeah, I know it was difficult for a lot of us, but I think I was able to pull off some things that really worked out for me. Internships, I'm just thinking just out loud. I was an intern at Leaders, 1354. It's a black-owned clothing store in Chicago. Interned there first. I interned Chicago Tribune. Back when newspapers were still a thing. Actually, the summer of 2010, when everything went up in smoke, I was there. I was ADP, handles everybody's checks and processing. Did that, as well as internship I had on campus with BlackBerry back in the day when there was this phone that people used to use. It was like shaped like your iPhone, but it had buttons.
Listen, you explaining this because people my age, you ain't have to get into all of those details, but I recognize that you put in respect for our younger viewers. I know exactly. I'm back in the BlackBerry, the flip phone day when you had the chirp. Like that was like high technology back then.
Hey man, I was team BBM for so long, man. The iPhone definitely. But yeah, man, I was a campus ambassador. They had like 3 phones that just came out, and I put together like a street team, and we all had the new phones. And
oh wow!
When the campaign did it, I don't know what happened to the people with the phones. I don't know.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about the relationships, because I know a lot of people talk about college, and I feel like there's a lot of conversation right now where people say college is, you don't need to go to college and you can learn everything online and you can read books and there's so many different digital courses. But I personally still see the value in college, especially from the relationships that you develop, the networks that you have access to. And quite frankly, if you're a 17 to 23-year-old person, the most ambitious and smart people in that demographic most likely are on a college campus. Tell me a little bit about the connections and the relationship that you forged during college and how that helped you post-college.
No, yeah, man, I disagree when people devalue education. And I think that if you look outside of in America, what's going on right now, and people are trying to make all these stark changes to education and wipe away Black history, there's a reason why. And it's a reason why you shouldn't devalue education, why people died to get you in these places. It's hugely important, man. And I think that ultimately some of the smartest people, even you go back to the days of Rome, the agoras, and, you know, I know there's just a marketplace, but essentially that's what college afforded you. It afforded you this teacher dish where you and individuals for maybe 4 to 6 years are there trading ideas, you're trading culture, you're trading customs, you're literally growing up.
Absolutely.
You're growing up, and I can't say that grammar school, elementary school, I can't say that high school afforded me that type of time and space, man. But being able to go away to Champaign, and it was far enough from Chicago where I was close to home, but if I need to pop up at home or mom needed to pop up, it was all good. But it allowed me to be an adult for myself, actually learn how to make decisions and really learn those responsibilities, because no one's going to make you do anything that you don't want to do. And that is for better or worse. And Champaign just really afforded just a crash course in it afforded a crash course in adulting. Yeah, and it was A1, but just ultimately, like, the friends that I had down there and different friends that working at like Google, working at Deloitte or Accenture and Leo Burnett, and where are all you people working at? Let me just think about all my friends, man. I'm even just like individuals who starting like their own businesses, like my friend with Michael Lavelle Wines that I'm working with. It's so many different, again, just different personalities that I came across. And Champaign just supported that. I'm not sure if it's different wherever you go, right? But I think that ultimately college really puts you in this place to where you can have these interactions without the hiccups and the boundaries of your home and your normal day to day. You got to get away from your family. You got to go out and venture. You got to go out and absorb. Professor in college used to call it cultural emergence. Essentially, you got to go out and you got to immerse yourself in what's going on, so you figure out the environment, but you also figure out yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna change gears here. We got a few more minutes to go. I want you to put on your mentor hat, your coach hat. Imagine that we got somebody sitting in front of you who, like, man, I want to do what you do. I want to be able to walk down the path you walk down. You know, the first question I have is, you talking to this young person and you coaching them up. First question I have for you is, what's the economic opportunity? What's the money like? When you get into this advertising marketing space, talk to me about the dollars. What does it look like?
Man, all right. So look, when I came out of school, my first job, working contract, I think I was making less than $30,000, thinking that's a lot of money. That ain't a lot of money. But also starting to realize that, hey, something ain't adding up. I'm doing a lot of time traveling, you getting a lot of things and perks, and it don't really add up. But starting out doing like experiential activations too. So it depends on what your function is. I got friends who come out, you're looking more like account management. You're going to be looking around anywhere between 60 to 90,000 for your first job. 60, and that 60 ain't nice. Analytics might pay you a little bit more because you're dealing with numbers. You're going to be dealing with a lot of different platforms and coding and function probably. It just really depends. And some of it is depending on what side you go through. Say if you want to go agency side, or say if you're going client side, or if you're going platform side, like distributor side, the pay can really differ, but it's competitive. I can say that it is competitive. You can make a healthy 6 figures. And also you can take with all these skills, and these clients are transferable. I think the care relationships that I still have from my first job, they represent that to this day. If I wanted to put together a brief and hey, turn around how we can get some money, you can do that. And you can do that without having to be a full-time employee. So as we talked a bit about contracts and freelancing a bit, there is that we have a particular opportunity to where there is no ceiling. You can necessarily make your own ceiling.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Next question. Do you have to have a degree in advertising or marketing to be able to really break into this industry?
You do not. It is helpful. And I have I have friends, I have colleagues who I know. Yeah, I've got people with like education backgrounds. I know people who, because this is something that it's a lot of skills that you learn on the job. It's things that I think that it's a lot of things about if you understand, if you're a perceptive individual, if you like to understand people and get to understand nuances of people, this is something that I think it would definitely, it suits people like that.
Absolutely. The main purpose, Drew, of this Share Your Receipts podcast is we want to create a huge network of successful individuals like you. And we want to eventually be able to link people like you to some young, aspiring person who may also want to follow in your footsteps. And there's a good chance that we're going to come across the young male, female who can relate to your story. By the way, your story is incredible. The thing, as I'm listening to what you said, the thing that continually jumps out to me is that you have been, even though you've had ups and downs as far as the little hiccup you had when you first started high school and that first semester of college, you seem to be a pretty focused person throughout your academic career, your professional career, while also still maintaining that balance with being a social person, being able to have fun and have a life as well. It seems like you found a way to straddle that balance of professional, serious, but I know how to have a good time, but I know how to also do that. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to maintain that balance? And one of the main reasons I want to have you on the show is because when a person looks at you and they hear your background or they hear your accomplishments, I feel like you're very relatable in the sense that just you seem to be very fun, you seem to be, but also very professional. And so can you tell me about that dynamic and how you've been able to balance that?
Got you. No, I appreciate that. It's definitely something that I try to take pride on in crafting because you never want to be too caught up in your identity with work. I think that's something that all of us, we have our own relationship with, but sometimes it can be unhealthy, right? And I think that, trying to carve value for yourself out of what you do is not the best thing. And I would challenge anyone who's doing that to try some other way of thought. But hold on, I'm thinking. Just trying to think about this question again. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, just basically, how do you maintain that balance? Because you the kind of person that when I show up in Chicago and I wanted to know what to do and go how to have fun, you'll be the one I would call. But then also, you the person too who is, man, this may be a serious marketing campaign. We need to have our ducks in a row. You would also be the person I want to call. It's like, how can you be, you're like both of those people all at the same time?
Got you. All right, so maintain that balance. Obviously, dude, it's one of the things where I've been able to speak a lot of this into existence and work. Where also some of the things I do for work isn't necessarily work. Sometimes I found ways in which I can just I can properly merge self or find ways in which I can extrapolate those benefits to really all of it make sense. I think that from times working in ad sales and really, I think beginning out my career, fortifying a lot of that quant to then aid in this, what I would say is this understanding of culture and being able to translate that to the masses led to opportunities for me to be in positions now where I liaison between clients and brands, or I'm the representative for the brand. I've held positions where, part of my job was to know what was hot, what's on, where's the 21 to 34-year-old audience. I've been hyper focused on this audience for years.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, again, I've also, someone I'm outside. I've been outside. I'm not someone who, I'm not always behind my computer. I found that going out and experiencing life and finding individuals is a worthwhile experience. So whether that is in Chicago, whether that is in Spain somewhere, or whether that is going to go see an exhibit with my family in Toronto in a library somewhere, which is a true thing. But it's those type of experiences that it all just allows me to merge, and I think it really it plays well. It's all been complimentary, but never getting too big headed and absorbed with this. I think that it's very easy to get that, especially in my space. There's a lot of some glitz and glamour, some cameras and celebrities, and again, we talk about budgeting and schmoozing. A lot of that happens, but is it really advancing the craft? Is it really preparing the next generation to take on what is a very important job? I think, as I defined earlier, what this industry is, we sway the masses. We change people's opinions, for better or worse. Look at presidential elections and social media. Look at vacuums and algorithms and see how individuals get sucked into these spaces where they're only hearing and seeing their opinion. We have a hugely important job. It's not just influencers. So and that's something that I'm very passionate about, and that I think it allows me to, at the end of the day, because I like free stuff too. I like nice things. I like free things too, but it's about a bigger purpose. And it's about trying to make sure that you're leaving things in a better place than they were left to you. And again, it's not too many people doing what I do. So I have to leave a good blueprint for individuals coming after me to figure this out. And a lot of figuring this out is dealing with ambiguity. Learn that from one of my mentors. I think, again, huge. I don't think I even talked about how much I stress mentors and finding mentors and seeking them out, and finding ways to, and not only finding mentors, but then learning when it's time for you to be a mentor and paying that forward and being a good peer. It goes into, you'll never die. So you'll never be without job. You'll never be without counsel. You'll never be without an ear. And I think that's something that is hugely important in our space to figure out how to navigate. It's changing every day. I talk about how just 10 years in which how we focus on audiences changing. So now you just even think about that. It's a nonstop cycle. It's a fun game. It's a fun game for sure.
Man, you touched on a bunch of amazing topics. One of them being mentorship and leaving things better than when you found it for the next generation. I feel like we've done our job with this podcast. If we can find somebody, or somebody reaches out to us, that we can connect to you, that you may be able to be an influence and show some mentorship. Is that something that you'd be willing to do if somebody reached out to us?
Oh, 1,000%, man. My door is always open, man. So I think by email, look me up on LinkedIn. Andrew Harris is there. Look up the black guy with the dreads or the braids, man. Very recognizable on that site. But yeah, I'm usually open to that, man. And it's something, I want to make sure that the doors are available for other people to break through. And I'm open to all forms of trying to, continue to provide fuel for other people's ambition and passion. I think that is very important, that you have people who know how to support you and stoke that.
Absolutely, man. Hey, we've already went over. I realize that I could probably talk to you for another hour or two, man. But Drew, I just want to, first of all, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you for sharing your amazing story. Thank you for letting us in a sneak peek into what goes on in the marketing and advertising world. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to be connecting you with some young person or somebody who's maybe mid-career, changing careers, who may want to follow in your footsteps. So again, thank you for your time, brother. We appreciate you. Thank you for showing your receipts.
No, thank you for what you do, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it.